Good afternoon. Welcome to the September 20th, 2023 Technical Review Committee meeting. It's 1:02 and we'll call this meeting in session. So my name is Ryan Fisher. I'm Senior Planner with Oldham County Planning and Development. The purpose of this meeting is to review proposed subdivisions, zoning map amendments, and development plans before they go to the Planning Commission. This gives local agencies and utility companies that will provide services the opportunity to review those plans, discuss and comment about the accessibility of services, and ensure all aspects of the development plans adhere to zoning and subdivision regulations. This meeting also provides adjoining property owners and concerned citizens in attendance the opportunity to ask technical questions of the applicants or the agencies represented here before you today. I will ask that before we begin, if you've got a cell phone, just please make sure it's on silent. If you do have to take a phone call for any reason, we just ask that you please step out of the room. We do appreciate that ahead of time. So we do have two items on the docket today. The first one will be 23-010 for the Chlor Station zoning map amendment and development plan. The other case will be 23-011 for a proposed Wawa in Buckner. Both of these cases will run exactly the same. We will first allow the applicant to come forward and give a brief presentation of their proposal. We will then have the agencies here in front of you today provide any comments to those to the applicant and their plans, and then we will provide an opportunity for public comment. We just ask during that public comment for the Technical Review Committee, we try to keep those questions technical in nature of either the applicant or the agencies that are represented here before you today. So we just ask when you do come forward, you'll just state your name and address for the record, and once again, keep those comments to a technical question in nature. So with that being said, we will start the first case, 23-010 for Chlor Station. At this time, we'll have the applicant come forward and give a presentation for us.
Do you want me to raise my hand or anything? No.
Just state your name and address.
Okay, Gant Jones, 2910 Darby Creek Drive, Crestwood. I'm representing the neighborhood presentation. I'm going to gloss over a lot of things quickly that are not pertinent to technical review, but I think it's really good to have context of what this development is, because it's a little bit outside of traditionally what we've seen in Oldham County. So kind of inform us of this. Orientation of the site. This is at Highway, exit 14 on Highway 71. Looking at the overall map, you have 329 that comes down north-south to the bypass. The parcels consist of 4 parcels, one to the north of 71, and the majority of 3 parcels to the south of 71. This largest southeast parcel connects over to 146, close to where the driving range is, if you're familiar with that. The middle parcel, as driving along, it has the yellow house, our original farmhouse with a tobacco barn. What we are designing here is what's called a traditional neighborhood development. It's different from regular housing development in Oldham County in the sense that it has a higher degree of density. It allows for the mix of uses with commercial and residential. It uses alley systems. That's not very common. Overall, it's basically what Norton Commons is, if you're familiar with that. Back in 2019, we had a design charrette. At the charrette, we did have the opportunity to meet with MSD, LG&E. I believe Louisville Water was there. I don't think Oldham County Water was there. We met with the South Oldham Fire Department. Eddie Turner was involved in that discussion, talking about streets and road systems. And that helped us better inform how we would do the overall master plan and layout of this project. So going at the overall master plan, we can see here a brief overview of this. We have a town center on the bypass where you have the majority of all your commercial mixed in with residential. So commercial first level, residential second or third levels. We have 3 commercials nodes. Primary is the town center. Secondary would be one over by the what we call the fill site, which is where Old 329 is and where Tark parking lot used to be. And then you have the north parcel, which is a kind of a larger commercial, considering that is where the Baptist Hospital will be going. And I'll let John Talbot discuss that site. So briefly describe that we are used to zoning here as Euclidean zoning. it breaks uses up into areas. So you get on this site as it stands today, you have R2, which is yellow. You have CO, which is the green. And then we have C4 commercial, which is a blue. So in those areas, we can only do residential or commercial based on the zoning. What we are applying for is basically a PUD based on what smart code is. The smart code looks at density, and within the proper locations where density is allowed, allows for uses which can mix both residential and commercial. So the mapping of that looks something like this, contrary to what was shown before with Oldham County zoning. So the purple, the darkest, would be the densest of use of a building, and the lighter purples, as they kind of span out, go from down to single family. I'll brief over this, but we have several governance documents to kind of help establish the planning and how this phases into its building. When kind of broken down more clearly, you can see the 3 commercial nodes. You have potentially maybe a couple other commercial areas, but they'd be kind of minor, more of a civic locations. Residential, towards your commercial nodes, your town centers, you have your densest residential. So the browns would be multifamily. The darker yellows would be, townhomes or row housing. And then the lighter yellows would be kind of single family residential. The green open space, we're retaining all of the valleys as natural open space to kind of set up a nice park system. Additionally, we have kind of green ribbons that connect back into the cities, into the village center. Utilizing some of these open spaces for stormwater and circulation. This is an overall general circulation plan, darkest red being primary circulation. I guess one important factor here to consider, or two, is a connection that connects all the way through to 146. It's circuitous, it's not direct. The intention of this type of planning is to create traffic calming conditions and not trying to be a quick A to B route. Another condition that we are trying to, we have proposed here, back I think in 2017, Old 329 went through a design phase with QK4, I believe, to relook at the intersection of Old 329 into the bypass. There were 3 proposals. The preferred proposal was the jug handle proposal that we've kind of brought into our design. Currently, what's being done is just modifying the existing intersection and providing lights at this time. Considering we get approved and we move forward, when we get into this phase, we will be working with the highway department to bring this more safer route into play. This is the overall stormwater study. As you can see, we have a lot of different areas. The red dash lines would indicate the stormwater sheds. So we don't have a direct route all flowing to one spot. In this study, we kind of look at multiple different locations for stormwater. We also are looking at maybe possibly having some regional detention to take away a lot of these smaller ones. But that will have to be developed as we get into engineering and phasing. That would utilize the valley and the stream system to a certain degree. Briefly, just a closer look at the town center. The bypass runs through here. Here we try to look at everything around a grocery store. This is the original home here that we are going to keep. Overall commercial rendering of what that town center might look like. And then the Baptist site. I do have other slides that can look at utilities, the existing utilities, if you guys want me to show those.
Thank you, Gant. And Brian, I already see him coming down to help me to change the screen, so thank you. Thank you again, Brian. John Talbot, Barton Warper Talbot and Roberts. My address is 1000 North Hurstbourne Parkway, Louisville, Kentucky, 40223. Again, thank you very much for that preliminary introduction to the large part of the plan that you'll are responsible for. For our piece, we just have the Healthcare Special District. We have several people on our team here to answer questions. We have from Baptist Clint Cahoe and Howard Farrell. Also, we have from Land Design and Development, we have Mike Hill and Eric Sen, and we also have Diane Zimmerman. She's our traffic engineer here to answer any questions. I think as Gant laid out, this is a fairly unique and new process that's been introduced to Oldham County. The development will be akin somewhat to what Norton Commons is in terms of the flexibility that is allowed for. The regulation is the Planned Neighborhood Development District under Section 236, which was promulgated relatively recently. One of the things that makes this place unique is this is going to be a very large plan, which is intended by the zoning district. I think the minimum area that you can have is 10 acres, so that's pretty large compared to most zoning districts, although this one is even much larger than that. But what is the main thing that's different on what you all see, particularly for the engineers, and I see the City of Crestwood's engineer here today, is that we are here, there's a four-step process in this zoning district. First, you have a conceptual plan. You take that to the planning staff and also to a neighborhood meeting. We've done that already. The second phase is where you get your master plan, and there's three parts to that. First, we come to TRC, then the Planning Commission, then the legislative body for the master plan. That master plan, although it's called master, the first one's called conceptual, still has a lot of conceptual natures to it. There's not been a great deal of field work done at this point, not engineering for construction planning at this point, where you will usually see plans where that has been started to be done, not the construction planning, but certainly much higher level of detail and plans at this point. We're not there yet, and this zoning district anticipates that. After we go to the legislative body and hopefully get approved, at that point and over time, you will start to see phase plans come before you, one at a time. And it's those phase plans which will be more similar to what you'll typically see at this committee and level of detail. So at this point, there's still going to be a lot of things that we don't know. The zoning will get approved, but again, we will be coming back for detailed plans. So just to let you all know in terms of what you're looking at today. This shows to orient yourself. You should recognize the slide from the one that Gant previously showed. Our portion is the part above north of 71 and east of Highway 329, and it's also in the red circle there. And there you can see it also on that slide, and akin to where some of the uses were on that. Here was our conceptual plan. This is what we presented at the neighborhood meeting, and I see a few familiar faces, so they should recognize that slide. And here is our master plan. I don't want to spend a ton of detail, but I do want to give a little bit of an orientation to it. The dark blue towards the bottom, that's the hospital. That'll be the main use on this site. Again, it's a healthcare special district. It's intended to be for wellness, and the hospital will be the anchor of that use. To the north, we've got the yellow buildings that you can see. The intent at this point is that we believe that will be a senior living type center. And then the buildings that are in orange in the middle, the ones to the top, those will most likely be some kinds of offices to complement the hospital and the healthcare uses. And then the other orange uses will be probably a mixture, maybe some office and other types of commercial uses. A couple things that you can see on this is you can see trees that will border the site. We're going to be adding landscaping, and we also have that landscaping interspersed throughout the site. You should also see 3 detention ponds, one at the top to the north, that's close to the neighborhood, one in the center, and then one close to I-71. At this point, again, no engineering has been done, but we think in looking at the layout that our engineers believe this is where our detention basins will most likely be. You will also see some open space in this development. Again, there will be some paths for walking. We'll try to accommodate some bikes and pedestrian traffic in addition to cars, again, for wellness. And that's also a part of the concept on this zoning district that we're required to accommodate. This shows our street functions. You can see those in red. Hopefully they're showing up. Those red ones are going to be, the intent is that those will be public streets that we will build and then turn those over to the public pursuant to your all's regulations. And then this slide also shows some of our setbacks. And I'm going to go through, spend a little bit more time on this. To the top, that is next to some of the subdivisions. There's a big, very strong and thick tree buffer, but even there we're going to have a 100-foot building setback, a 25-foot parking setback, and a 12-foot landscape buffer in addition to the trees that are already in that area. Also to the north, but moving to the east, also on the top of the page, there's some agricultural land to the north of us. Again, we will have a 100-foot building setback, 25-foot parking setback, and a 6-foot landscape buffer in this area. Again, there is also a row of trees along this property line. Those will remain, and we will add a 6-foot buffer of trees as well. Now, when you get to the right, you'll see that triangle, that kind of dark purple triangle. That is not our property. That's already developed as multifamily, and that's a fairly dense development for multifamily. So we reduced our setbacks in this area because it's already developed, and our setbacks there are 25 foot for the buildings, 15 feet for parking, and a 15-foot landscape buffer. Now, these seem a little bit small to compare to what we have already offered, but those are actually in excess of the requirements that you'll currently have on your zoning regulations, where you have C3 abutting multifamily, which is what we effectively have here. Last couple slides, these just show some of the pictures of what the main building, the hospital, will look like. And that brings me to the end of our presentation. We'll be available for pictures, and I think we're handing it back to Gant at that point. Thank you all very much.
Can you switch it back? Sorry. I don't know if I did or not. Okay. So far as kind of additional slides or kind of existing utilities, I can indicate that on here as well on this plan, sorry. This is kind of looking at kind of the utility, existing site conditions. The green dashed lot is sanitary sewer, the purple gas, red underground electric, orange overhead electric. Looking at the overall site, this green line indicates the sewer that's existing that runs through the valley of the project. Currently, there are no utilities that run down the bypass. We do have single phase that reaches in, but three phase, sorry, only I think comes in the back portion of this property and then runs along the highway here and down Old 329. All utilities are on this side and already connected into site on the north parcel. Water runs down 329, does not run down the bypass. So a lot of the utilities are focusing down the old 329, and the rest of the north parcel only has sewer at the moment, with possible gas and electrical connections. So I guess, is there any questions that you guys would have for me or anything? I'm done, yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we'll get to questions here in a second if we have any. So that concludes your all's presentation. We will go to agency comments now. We will begin with Planning and Development. Brian Vogel, our Assistant Director, is the case manager on this, so I'll let him take it.
We have 4 comments. We put these in writing. We'll provide both the hospital representative and the Chlor Station representative copies of this. Upon receipt of today's meeting that we sent out to the agencies, the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet notified us that they were not able to attend today. They did put their comments in writing that we'll give you guys a copy of in an email, basically saying things need to be coordinated with them, and they are interested in seeing the traffic impact study to help determine the impact on the 329 bypass in 146. That leads into a second comment that we have have not seen a traffic impact study, and prior to the time that a zoning map amendment master plan application are filed with us, we need that traffic impact study incorporated into that application. Also, a third comment that kind of relates to the filing of the application for the zoning map amendment and master plan. We need to see evidence that the Oldham County Comprehensive Plan supports this development. Included in what we're giving you in writing are the highlighted portions of the Oldham County Comprehensive Plan that is in agreement with what you're all proposing. That doesn't mean there's other portions of the comprehensive plan that would not be applicable to this that you could include with your application. And then lastly, when we mailed the adjoining property owner notifications out, we've received 6 emails with comments. 5 are specifically referenced in what I'm giving you. The other one was received late today. There is a copy of it that's put at the back of your packet raising questions and concerns that will need to be addressed as part of your all's application for a zoning map amendment and master plan. That constitutes any written comments we have.
I want to put a framework on this first for the benefit of everybody that's here. You know, this is a very unique project in terms of its multiple land uses, its size, its scale, its potential impacts. And I believe that the comments today are going to be somewhat global in nature, not necessarily specific to a very location. I know you all, as adjoining property owners, may have something that's very specific to your backyard or impact that you might feel, and that's all well and good. But I think our agency comments are going to be more broad in nature. As you come up later, you're welcome to say whatever's on your mind in terms of concerns or support, but and they will go in the record. So again, our comments are, like Brian's, are going to be more general in nature at this level.
All right, thank you. So with that being said, we'll go to the rest of the agencies. If you don't have any comments for any certain reason, just say you don't have any comments, but we'll start down here at the end. Mark Sites with MSD. Just pull your microphone to you and turn it on. Sorry.
MSD has a pretty good model for this system right now in terms of the backbone. And as we get the additional information from the engineers and everybody else, we'll be looking at the flow rates and all those things. But this is going to be a...
I think you got to speak louder. I'm not sure they can hear you.
Okay.
Get right in that microphone.
Is this better? There we go. Okay. MSD has a very good model for this area for the systems that exist, and we will work with the engineer based on the flow to be added as the plan progresses.
Thank you. Chief?
No, you already mentioned a traffic impact study. Certainly, we'd like to see that. But just out of curiosity, how many beds will be in this hospital?
I'm not sure, Howard. Clint, do you know how many beds will be in the hospital?
You just come to the microphone, please.
Clint Cahoe, President Baptist South LaGrange. We are licensed for 90 beds right now, and we will be relocating that license from LaGrange to Crestwood. With some of the growth that is occurring in our community, we do think that there's a potential that there will be more beds needed in the future, but we'd go through the planning process with the state at that time.
Is there going to be an emergency room in this hospital?
We would plan to have an emergency department, yes.
24 hours?
24 hours, yes.
Okay. Just wondering.
Yes,
'Cause
thank you.
They usually prompt runs for us, emergency rooms, so I was just wondering.
I'm sorry, I did not hear you.
They usually calls those to make runs, emergency rooms, so I was just wondering.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
thanks.
And we appreciate your help with those too.
Jim Silliman?
Jim Silliman, County Engineer. So as Jim Urban said, looking at this from a global nature, you know, we see the scope and the details. There's not I guess there's not a lot of detail in some of the mapping. However, when you dig into the plan, there are some details, and where we see those, we do want to make some comments. So I've got a list of some detail-oriented comments, and I don't think it's beneficial to go over those one by one right now and just recite them to you. I'd like to get together and review some of those again in detail and see where there might be a
Jim,
take for instance.
can I just pause you right there just so everybody knows? Every phase of this project will come back to the Technical Review Committee, so those details are going to be reviewed at future meetings. That's where I was talking about global
Right.
comments versus very specific, and that's what you're...
Well, take for instance like the yield streets that we've talked about internally, that there's not, it's not shown on the overall map where these yield streets are. That'll come at a later date, but there is a detailed cross-section for that. So I wanted to have a discussion with the developers with regard to that yield street in general. And I think, Chief Smith and I have discussed it some, how it affects overall flow and response times. So that's one of those details we would like to discuss with you, but again, it's hard to just nail down where those are because they're not on that individual phase yet. With that said, there are going to be overall comments regarding detention basins. Some of them appear to be shown very close to the blue line stream, but based on scale of the map, we can't tell whether it's in the stream or not. If there's inline detention planned for that blue line stream, of course, there's Army Corps of Engineers and Kentucky Division of Water coordination that's going to be required. Similarly, looking at the traffic, Brian mentioned that traffic study came in today. We'll want to look at that with you. There's going to be coordination with the I-71 and 329 interchange, which, Gant, I know you were on the public information meeting that KYTC held for that just last night via Zoom. There's also a proposed study that Oldham County is looking at coordinating for an overall study of the corridor of 329 from 71 to 22, which has bearing on this. So all those I think we need to collect and look at together.
Matt?
Matt Toller, GIS and 911. It's too early to really go over anything that kind of comments I'll have at this point for this. So we'll just talk about it as those detailed phases come in.
But Matt, at some point, it would be beneficial to get a street naming plan so that step number
Yeah,
one
I mean,
is
if you
you can
guys
check
wanted
on what names wouldn't be appropriate because they're used elsewhere in the county. So at some point, not immediately, but, and then that will at least take a step in the right direction, correct?
Yeah, I mean, you can get me just a list of what you guys are trying to propose, and we can, I mean, the earlier the better. I mean, we can start to reserve names now for whenever it does go into development, but, because, I mean, we're going to, there's a lot of different roads in here, and just, we're trying to avoid duplicates or names that sound similar to other roads in the county, or surrounding counties for that matter, now that, mapping systems broaden out now. But that's
I think
all,
the
that's
other-
the only comment I have.
The other thing for you to understand is, are there going to be carriage houses and secondary accessory dwelling units? And also, usually the post office, we're not really clear on whether they're requiring cluster mailboxes or centralized mail delivery, but, you've got to work with the post office to figure out what you're going to do. It looks like you already have an answer to that. Yep.
Yes.
Our intention is to have cluster mailboxes and not individual mailboxes at residential homes.
Okay, great.
All right. Chief Blakely?
Bill Blakely, South Oldham Fire. Again, we're pretty early in this process, so right now I don't have any questions or comments on it at this time.
But eventually, they will need to see a fire hydrant location plan, and including the phases and review by your agency.
Correct. Russ? Yeah.
So Breast Rose, Oldham County Water, this is outside of our service area and would be in the Louisville Water Company's area.
And then Mr. Marshall with Crestwood Engineer, do you have any comments?
Yeah, well, it's a question really, just if this is appropriate time, related to anticipated responsibilities within our public right-of-way, like street maintenance, trees and vegetation I see. Could you just speak to that expectation of, particularly for the, what the city would be expected to maintain, repair, replace?
Right. So we've had recent discussions about that, about the right-of-way. We definitely intend to have streets lined with trees, and we understand that Crestwood does not take care of it. So we would assume responsibility of all quality control, keeping that together and everything. Additionally, we understand that we might have pavers in kind of our commercial district, which we understand that we would probably be responsible for that too. It would be our intention that the city would manage all asphalt or concrete, paving, concrete curb conditions, concrete sidewalk kind of things. But it's a discussion we really want to have with Crestwood to kind of further solidify what is our responsibility, because we want to maintain quality, and what Crestwood is willing to take care of.
And I think that goes along too to like, are the alleys going to be public or private? And you'll identify
Yeah,
that when you
we'll
have
have
that
to go through that
conversation.
too.
You know,
Yes.
there are certain types of streets that may or may not fit within what the city of Crestwood wants to maintain.
Exactly. And I think that goes in line too with parks. And if we want to maintain our own parks and keep our own parks privatized to a certain degree versus, handing it over to the city.
To follow up, Jim, could you enumerate, or if you already did, I may have not caught it. At what phase in this At what phase in this process does that discussion or approval or communication come?
Well, I think it's best to have that earlier on a broader level to understand, just like Mr. Silliman was questioning where these yield streets are, and are those going to be privately or publicly maintained, because they don't fit any of our standard road widths, and they have parking, and you actually have to yield. It's really like a one-way street in effect. So at some point, all of us should meet so that the city of Crestwood understands what those are, and then we need to see where they're located. Because if a yield street is located in an area that is limited, let's say, to their use, it would be different than if they were thoroughfares. And I don't think they intend to have a yield street as a thoroughfare, but we need to see that on a map, where the yield streets are, and the alleys and the various road types that they have in their standards.
All right, thank you. So that concludes agency comments. At this,
One more thing. Well,
Almost.
I mentioned standards. Mr. Talbot really explained what this process is, and I think he did a good job of doing that. There's what's called a planned neighborhood district zoning regulation that was approved by the Planning Commission and then ultimately the city of Crestwood. In that PND zoning classification, it mentions a thing called Smart Code. And essentially, that's a document that they have, which will be their standards specific to this development. And the Smart Code is something that you can add to, subtract from, depending on its appropriateness. So if you haven't seen that, it's an interesting way of doing, creating the standards. Those standards are, in fact, he's trying to push on the door, not pull, but those standards are different than in our zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations. So if you're looking to comment and you're looking at our zoning regulations, that's the wrong document. We need to be able to distribute that, and I think we put it on our website, or we're going to, the T&D standards.
Yeah, we have not put the T&D standards on our website, but once a formal application is made for a zone change and a master plan, we will.
Yeah.
But we do have it available that if people contact us, we'll email it or drop it in the mail.
Yeah. So again, now it's a confusing word. Now they're TND, Traditional Neighborhood District Standards. That's what the Smart Code says. But that's going to be their, if approved, their adopted development standards. They are much more descriptive and much more detailed than our zoning ordinance or subdivision regulations. So it's, I think, a better document to look at because it will tell you exactly what they're proposing, especially like when we're talking about the street network and whatnot.
all right, thank you. So with that being said, if anybody from the public would care to comment at this time or ask a question of the applicant or agencies, we just ask that you raise your hand. You can come forward to the podium and just state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. Joe Sanford, 4300 Macomb Circle, Crestwood, Kentucky. And I believe you were referring to the T&D standards from August 11th? Is that the?
I think that's the latest version, yes.
Okay. In section 3.2.3, subsection A, it mentions Highway 329 and I-75. I believe that should be I-71.
I pointed that out to them in their previous version. Yeah, that was just a typo. It's 71.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then subsequent to some of the speed limits, and speed limits are very well defined for most of the streets, whatever. However, in no place in section 5J through 5U, there's no speed limits for boulevards or drives mentioned. Thank you.
Great points, yep.
Thank you.
And just because there were a couple of changes to that document from August, they are going to submit with their planning commission packet whenever they're ready to submit that revised. We went over some changes. There were other questions I had, so.
Right. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am in the back.
Hi, I'm Judy Krask, and I live at 7415 Highway 329, Brownsboro, and it's Crestwood address. What my concern is, I live right there off of 329, across from now Pillar Community. Live on the strip there with my neighbor Marie and a few others on the strip there. There's a creek out back that when it rains, like say 4 inches in 2 days or 4 inches in an hour or whatever, it gets over the road into my property, and it goes over the bridges going to my neighbors that live on the hill, which is adjacent to Glen Meadows subdivision. And with all this development that's going to happen, my question about stormwater and retaining basins and all this development hadn't started yet, but we had some apartments built up there, which they have I understand all that. And then, it's a small pebble in this operation. It's a good development going on. This is going to be provided for Oldham County. But when you live there and you see the amount of water that goes through this creek from, let's say, from the Glen Arm area that goes flow into the creek all the way to toward Brownsboro, and then it goes in behind the quarry and on down to Sleepy Hollow. I don't know what the technical names are, but that's my concern. And the other concern, obviously, is traffic, which we just had that wreck of that little boy that died off of 71 from that thief that stole the vehicle. Such a sad thing. But 329 is 35 miles an hour, which I addressed that at the meeting at the Crestwood Baptist Church. And with lack of officers, thank goodness we have officers that are willing to work and be in our presence. 329 in front of my house, and it's hard to mow grass because nobody cares about anybody's body or livelihood. So if we get any more traffic, this really needs to be addressed. Traffic lights, whatever that needs to be done, it's going to impact a lot of things. And then my concern too, will that road be widened? I asked Ms. Zimmer that at that meeting. She did not have an answer. And I know this is a global, just a review committee right now, but that's some of the concerns I have. And if you want to see pictures, which I didn't think about sending it to you, Jim, but I can show you numerous pictures of when it's flooded back there. And so I can provide that later on.
It's been a long-term issue, I know, and you're welcome to send more pictures. I've seen them all, but it is a concern even before development.
And
Yep.
it's going to get worse. But I mean, if it's built correctly, structurally, it should be okay. I mean, but it's just something we got to look out for. Thank you.
It's right here in the front.
Ann Schottler, I'm talking regarding the 6033 Highway 146 property that has a driving range on it.
What's your address?
I think it's 6033 Highway 146.
Your address?
No, my address is on Dawkins Road, but I'm one of the owners of that property.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And what we're wondering, and it comes down to the road sizes, is Clore Hill Road sufficient, or is there going to be needing to be, we're looking at, is that going to come into our property? I know my sister's house runs right along that. And when do we find that out?
I don't know if we want to take questions, or if you know, I think it's a short answer, if you want to,
If you know the answer, I'd love it. If not, when we
So,
can
no,
find it
we don't-
out.
We only stay on our property. And I
Okay.
believe there's a 60-foot right-of-way, so the road will have to be adjusted for width.
All right,
yeah,
thank you.
I think Clore Hill is a 60-foot right-of-way, but we can check that to be sure.
All right, there was somebody over here. Yes.
Hi, my name is Beth Cersey, and it's 5416 Meadow Stream Way, and it's in the Spring Hill subdivision. I don't know, can we bring up the map, or is that, if not, I can just speak to it.
You have a map on there we can bring up, Kate?
In the area that is right off of our subdivision,
If you
So-
let him bring this map up
Okay.
real fast, don't we?
let me get out the way, I'm sorry.
Do you want the overall site map?
Yeah, so this is the area that we're really talking about here.
Is it not coming up? Oh, there it is. Let's see if I can zoom in for you.
Okay. Do you have the view that shows kind of the two separate areas in the connector?
In here,
Yeah,
I don't know what I can show.
it was on a different slide, I think,
Is it? So on the master plan?
probably. Yeah, that's it. That's perfect. Okay, so our subdivision is down here at in the bottom left. That's Spring Hill subdivision.
You can use
And
the
so-
mouse
Or you can
and,
use that mouse right there if you'd like to.
Okay, this is
and
good.
put it on the map.
Okay.
Yep, there you
So
go.
this area right here is Spring Hill, and my questions revolve around kind of this area right in here. The information that we were given most recently is that the area called the landfill area is going to be developed like in phase 4-ish. And this area up here that comes directly off of our subdivision will be developed in like phase 2 when you look at the steps. So my question is, I know it was said that we don't have a traffic impact study, at least not available yet, but do we know, or can we get a commitment that the amount of traffic, construction, and once that's developed, will not have, a measurable negative impact coming through our area trying to get to that, the new development? So I'm trying to understand if there will be a main road, a paved main road for all traffic getting into the new area, and if that will be done as part of the development of the hill part, not just the landfill part. Does that make sense?
Yes. Bill, you want to answer that?
Bill Ramsey, I live at 301 Wooldridge in Pee Wee Valley. Beth, as we've talked, the intent on the landfill and the property on the hill is that it be developed in construction traffic and traffic flow. I mean, we can't control where, once the place is developed, where people drive their cars. But there will be a road connecting them through the valley that's shown kind of right on the property line. Yeah. Right about here. So this development, this road here, and this on the hill, the intention is to not drop construction traffic through here. And the things that I emailed you will help control that we'll commit to during construction.
So that road will be developed before any of this up here?
So technically how it would be done is you'd probably, if I had to guess, we'd do the fill site first. you build this road because we're going to have to provide detention in this valley. And so that road's going to have some sort of major, it's going to be on like a dam type structure. And it's going to contain the water, and it should actually restrict the amount of water that's coming down into your all's place now, because I know flooding's an issue for y'all, and it is a real issue. So that gets built. So you build that dam, you put a construction road across it, so you bring construction traffic in across the road, and you develop this side.
Okay. So is it possible to keep the end of, what is that, Meadow Bluff?
This here, right there, is what you're talking about.
Yes. Is it possible to keep that closed until the development is done to prevent that? Because those roads are very small.
Once we sell a lot and build a home, we have to have two means of egress out of there. But that's after a lot is sold and the home's built and somebody's living there. And the fire department's going to need to use it, police are going to need to use it.
In the meantime, while it's being constructed though, can that be closed?
As much as, except for connecting utilities.
Okay.
So we'll have to connect utilities to it.
The other question
Can you,
I have-
Beth, can you pull the microphone over? Sorry, so everybody can hear. Thank
You
you.
need to stay here because it's for you too. The other question is, we talked about allowing a buffer between the two areas. Do you have a proposed, like, can we request a 50-foot buffer of like the green space that won't be?
So when we submit detailed plan reviews for each section, you all need to be a part of that. Now, I'll tell you right now, there's an existing tree line that runs that property line. There's no intention that any trees are on your, we're not going to take those down.
But how big is that
So
buffer?
also, there's a gas line that runs down and up that, there's an easement for that. And that we'll have to keep, I'm not sure you can build a road across top of the gas line or not. I don't think you can. So we'll have to be outside of that. So the road here really is going to come down and kind of turn over into the valley, I think, and then back up. So the trees that are there, we're not going to tear them down. All right.
Okay. Okay. It just makes me nervous of that. Well, maybe we can and maybe we can't.
That microphone, sorry.
What I can tell you is if the trees are in the right-of-way for the gas line, right now there's a right-of-way there, we won't be tearing down any trees that are there. And those trees that are on that property line, the truth is we're probably going to enhance that, but until we do detailed design, we don't really know. So when we do that, we need to bring y'all in, and that's one of the reasons I mentioned the processes of during construction, how we meet with the HOA and we interact with you on a weekly to monthly basis to make sure things are happening. Because one of the concerns people are going to have is, and you all have a legitimate concern, I'm in construction. So truck driver drives through my yard and knocks over my mailbox. Well, who did that and how did you do that? Well, there's ways to kind of mitigate that, but you have to be interacting with us on a weekly, monthly basis for that to get resolved well.
All right, my last question is, part of this development up here, it looks like it's not single-family homes. And so my question is, how much of that is going to be like parking lot and lights and concrete in this area that's off of our subdivision?
So you're talking about this area here.
Yeah.
And I think that's shown as kind of like row homes.
What's the red, the dark red? That's
So that, what is dark red, Gant? Multifamily. So multifamily can be, some people get that confused with apartments. It could be apartments or it could be like condos where you go in and there's like 4 units inside, kind of a New York style apartment complex.
so what's designed for that?
Well, that's the master plan. What we're going to actually do there, I don't know.
Makes me nervous again.
So what I'm encouraging you to do, and what we not only what do I want to do, but what's the right thing to do, is to interact with the HOA as we go through these planning meetings, because we just don't exactly know how the storm's going to work. I really don't think you can build or single family lot right there because there's a big hole, because I've walked it. So that'll have to get slid over. So this master plan is just that. It's just a master plan. It's not a detailed plan. And as Jim mentioned, once we get into those phases, we still need you all's interaction, and we want to be up front and get ahead of that so that we take care of y'all, because we want y'all to be happy. And I do think you're going to use our development a lot. You're going to like it. So we want you to be engaged with us.
Bill, is it correct that the yellow is single family And what you're doing is actually putting single-family next to single-family, not higher density, except for that little block more towards the front, there's townhome lot.
Yeah,
It's
and I'm
kind of orange.
colorblind, so I apologize. So you're asking a dumb engineer what colors are. Yes, the big, I'm calling them vanilla color. Yeah, that is
There you
single
go.
family. There you go.
They're single-family.
Yes, they are.
And some of those say mixed-use building too. So would there be parking lots and affiliated with that as well?
So right here, the parking lot is shown basically in the back. That's a parking lot behind there to serve mixed use here. Now,
Is it mixed use or is it actually multifamily building? Bill, if you can't see the colors.
yeah, the plan is to have, the early plan is we thought we might want to have a coffee shop up here. We might want to have a Xerox place. They don't do Xerox anymore, but something like an office space. But not any place that's going to bring large amounts of people because, I mean, it's up here out in the middle of nowhere. It's just there to serve the residents of that space. So when you think of new urbanism and you go to Norton's Commons, there's little places like there's a place to get your nails done in one little section that serves that space. It's not there to pull people from around the state or around the city or even around this development. And that's all this little area might be. The areas that's going to serve the interstate are going to be down here on the fill site. The areas that's going to serve the whole space in the town and the county is this space here. So we don't like, new urbanism doesn't like big parking lots. For the people that know here, and ladies concerned about parking, the design of new urbanism, the intent is to slow people down and to keep people in homes and keep you there so you can work from home, you can live there, you can work, and your kids can live close to you. So we don't like big parking lots and we don't like lighting up the sky either.
Okay, thank you.
And Beth, I know that we've talked about this, and Bill has been involved in the conversations about potential binding elements and some of the questions that you're raising. This is a technical review. You don't put them in here. We had a conversation about that. Once they submit for the Planning Commission, then I would anticipate that you would at least have agreeable at some point binding elements.
Is that when the binding elements would go in?
Yeah.
Then,
Yeah, at the Planning Commission level. Well, we adopt those as part of any approval or recommendation to the city. So we'll continue to work on those.
So this helped answer some of our questions, and then our board is meeting with him, I think, next week to kind of iron out anything that we can agree to ahead of time or anything that we still want to put in the binding elements and all that. So I think we're good with that.
And I can't remember if you invited me to that meeting, but if you want me there, sure, just send me an email.
Will do. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Good afternoon. I'm Sharon Blair, 5305 Meadows Streamway in Crestwood. So I'm also in Spring Hill, and I just wanted to bring up one other thing that from what Beth had. The question I have is on that same section. I'm sorry I did not count, but how many living units are we expecting in Section B there, Section 2? Between single-family apartments, how many doors do we expect there?
You can come on up.
I don't know if this is broken down into sorry. Okay, I have to refer to the plan. So saying Southwest 1, which is the entirety of all of this, I believe. So if we go down to this, Southwest 1, 186 domestic units.
Okay.
That includes the fill site too.
Okay. Okay, so what I would like to mention to the board here that's listening, that's 186 homes. Spring Hill itself only has 88. And they are proposing one road to go to all of those. And that road that Bill spoke about just a moment ago, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an engineer, but he used the word intent, and our intentions are for that road. We are asking you to consider to have them put in another road that goes to all of the construction that's going to be up there, for our safety, for our fire, our police, our 911, having people come through our subdivision to get to those places, and our roads that do not have sidewalks. Having another road that will go across that fill area. There, it looks like there's a white little lane area. I think that's supposed to be a walking path. I'd like to ask that you all consider that they be told they need another road in there. That is a major thing for us. The one they have proposed now is on a gas line. It's where the utilities are. We've just found out that it's next to the water basin. I'm not, like I said, not an engineer, but I'm assuming that is why it's an intent. Just want to make sure that there is definitely going to be a road there and not just the intent to have one that may not end up happening. So, let me think real quick here. And I was also going to ask about the buffer, but I believe Beth brought that up as well. So I think we're good on that. So I'll see you next week.
All right. Thank you. Orange shirt here. I think that's orange. Sorry if it's not.
I guess I shouldn't have waved. My name's Jerry Meyer. I live in Glen Meadow Subdivision, 4304 Macomb Circle, 2 doors down from Joe Sanford. So this is more for what it's worth because I've lived there 33 years next to that hillside that is going to be developed for the hospital and all that. And I don't have any real problem with that, except a couple of things you should know. The first one is noise. And we're probably far down the road when the helicopter pad is put in, but we had to fight the owner of that hillside who wanted to put a go-kart track in there 20 years ago. So
pull the mic a little closer to yours. Be closer to it. Thank you.
So yeah, we successfully fought that off. But then about 10 years ago, there was a proposal to put apartment buildings on that hillside. And the reason it was defeated was that hillside's limestone, sinkholes, and a lot of karst. So I just warned the builders, be careful because you don't know what you're on. And as an example of the limestone sinkholes, there is a large, and I'm no tree hugger, but there is a large sugar maple tree. 10 years ago, the Division of Forestry for the state of Kentucky estimated that sugar maple is either the second or third largest tree in Kentucky, largest sugar maple. It looks like it's approximate to your 100-foot offset, but I sure would like to see that saved if you could. By now, because it's in a sinkhole, limestone, it's probably the largest sugar maple in Kentucky, but we haven't measured it lately. You can't get to it. That's all I had.
Thank you. All right, back here in the blue, yep.
Hi, I'm Chris Sweetall. I'm at 7401 Old Coach Road. That's next to Jerry, who just spoke. So I have a list of some technical things to be considered and items we would like to see added. This is mainly the north side of 71, and this is from a collection of residents in the Brownsboro area. First of all, we'd like Planning Commission and the developers to review the information provided by the residents in the denied rezoning proposal for apartment buildings on that 11-acre property bordering our subdivision. This was from 2017, and there's a lot of information there I think would be helpful. We're asking an independent review of the site geology independent review of environmental review, including endangered species and wetlands, stormwater runoff analysis, considering the karst geology that Jerry was just speaking about, watershed impact study on Harrods Creek watershed. This may have changed. The master plan that Baptist showed today has some updates from what we had seen, but we'd like to see an analysis of the proposed intersection of Old Brownsboro Road and Baptist Health Boulevard. I don't know if it's changed from their conceptual plan. Add requirements to follow principles of responsible outdoor lighting at the healthcare district. Add height restriction to structures bordering single-family housing and agricultural land to 2 stories in the healthcare district. And we'd like to add an additional 25-foot buffer of natural existing vegetation that borders the single-family and agricultural areas. We feel that would really help that and preserving mature trees on the development, but those measures would really help with the stormwater issues and with heat island effect. So I want to thank you for working with the community.
And Chris, I did get your email and printed it and gave them a copy.
Okay.
And so, we haven't had a chance to go through those, but
Yeah,
at least they are in the record already.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
and thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming. Mhm.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, right here.
Hi, I'm Danielle Strong, and my address is 7203 Star Barn Lane, and we're in the Summerfield by the Lake neighborhood. Many of us had a question about the hotel. It looks large on the map, like it's 3 buildings, and it looks like it will all be in between the 2 highways, and be right outside of the Spring Hill neighborhood exit. Is that location set in stone? Why isn't it next to other commercial locations? That's like the only kind of thing on the end there. Buddy?
Right. I'll answer it.
Yep. You want to?
Really quickly. So this is the hotel I believe you're speaking of.
And into the microphone.
This
You
is-
can just lift it up. You'll be fine. There you go.
This is the Spring Hill entrance down here, the first.
That's
Sorry,
Summerfield.
Summerfield. So Spring Hill's right here, right?
Yeah.
And this is the hotel entrance here. So this is kind of located in kind of what we see as a commercial district zone right here. The intention of the hotel is more of a boutique hotel. We have, I guess, 3 locations for hotels, one at this commercial node, one at this commercial node, and one over here at this commercial node. Kind of see 3 different services. We kind of see this more as an iconic hotel of the 3 and more boutique in nature. Should I include anything else, Bill, you think?
So we pulled up Google image here. So it's a good question. When DPZ, who did our design, was master planning our community, when you get off of the interstate and you're driving up past the gas station, you kind of see that rock outcropping that sits right there where the road ties in.
Yeah, it's the highest point in Crestwood.
Yeah, and so what they tried to do from an artistic standpoint is to put something there that's beautiful and that is attractive and that it's very stately. So what they designed is not a mass I-71. I'm a construction worker, so I'll say it, construction worker hotel.
Yeah.
Okay, so what they have master planned there is a boutique hotel that's high end that would host things like a little bit like a 21C, but kind of Oldham County. Okay, so that's the purpose of it. It's not going to be a huge, we're not going to maximize the number of beds there. It's going to be a place we anticipate for the development. It's a place for your mother-in-law to stay. you know, when they come in for graduations, for people to have small get-togethers, for girls to have a weekend night out. That's kind of the purpose of it.
Okay. Do we know like how many rooms or how many stories it will be? Because my view, I just don't want to see a tall hotel right outside my back door.
So we have a rendering that you can see of it, and that's probably the best thing to look at.
Okay.
Again, this is not, I hate to say intent, but I'm also a businessman. I haven't put money to paper, so I don't know exactly how many stories it's going to be. But it's not going to be a tall building. I would say probably 3 or 4 stories is probably the max, and that's probably in the center. I would look at the rendering. I don't know if we've got that on the slide somewhere, Gant. Yeah. So that's an idea. Now, right now, currently, the intersection comes down and kind of cuts through where that hotel would be. We've been trying to talk to the state about putting this jug handle in, and the reason we put the jug handle in is for a couple reasons. One, it's a safer, it provides a safer drive down 329 and slows everything down. It also keeps guys in trucks from driving up and around through your neighborhood, hopefully. But that's an idea of what the hotel might look like.
Okay. So it's nice, but it's probably still going to be visible.
Yeah, you're going to have more commercial. I mean, this is commercial-ish kind of dual-use space here. So you're going to have Norton Commons looking stuff down through here.
So, like with the hospital, there were barriers and things for the noise because it's a 24-hour place. Will there be barriers for the hotel?
I mean, there'll be normal setbacks. Now, I'll tell you a couple things too that I've heard, and when you talk about, and you didn't ask this, but I want to address this, and I'll talk about the noise, lighting. The conferences Gant and I go to learn about these type of developments, we've been talking to a lot of national lighting experts, and they're all about saving energy and reducing lighting and sky lighting while at the same time protecting security. And so we've got to have an old-fashioned way of lighting everything from the top and spotlighting people's heads. And you can't see a woman's face in the dark when the spotlight's overhead. It hides her face. But if it's reflected off a building, you actually see her better and there's less light. So in terms of lighting, yes, there's going to be more lighting there when we're finished than there is now, obviously, because it's being developed. But it's going to be done in a way I think that's extremely tasteful. That's what I want, is extremely tasteful. But that still provides high qualities of safety. From a noise standpoint, I think you're going to have more noise. I'm not sure it's going to add to the noise because it's a boutique hotel. I don't know if I can even answer that question.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the last question doesn't concern the hotel. It's the freeway noise. Are there going to be extra barriers and buffers for the freeway with the extra traffic we'll be getting?
Yeah, I can't answer that question.
That was actually discussed at the public meeting last night, and Gant, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they said there were no barriers planned right now, and it had been evaluated in their analysis. Was that correct?
And you're asking, let me be clear, you're asking about I-71?
That's correct.
Yeah, that's a state regulated, and I don't believe that there are any.
I do want to clarify, though, yeah, it's clearly they're not doing it. Mostly, and they didn't specifically say, but there's just nobody living there yet. We're going to schedule a meeting with the District 5 Highway Department, and I just want to approach that question, that realizing that as things get developed over time and the population starts to support, what's the possibility of getting it in the future? And how does that process work? But it's out of our hands to do that. Highway does it based on certain parameters.
That's a great point. And what Gant was saying is that one of their criteria was based on the population there, that the density wasn't there to support the noise, and so the equation didn't work out for it now. But as Gant's saying, if the population increases, then maybe later on it does support it. But again, that is for KYTC to determine.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
True. One thing Clay reminded me of, and I will say this, and this is one of the things we talk about. If you've got an interstate, you put buildings next to those interstates, and that does buffer some noise. Now on the hill, some of our properties above the interstate, because I've walked it, but some of it's lower, and so those homes may help some, but not as good as a sound barrier would.
All right. Thank you. Anybody else in the crowd? Yeah, I'll come back to you because I already went to you once. Yeah, back here in the back.
Hi, I'm Rachel Jensen, and I live on 5507 Meadow Stream Way. And I had my 2-year-old earlier, so I had to walk out. But the man in the blue mentioned, I think it was you, the dam at the end of the creek there. And I was just curious if my property lines that creek, and I'm curious how the dam would affect my backyard potentially. And I do understand that you're gonna try to avoid the gas line, so maybe be further up. And then I just had a random question too. Are they adding another school for school stuff, or?
Okay, so I'll attempt to answer both of those. So per state code, okay, I can say this because I am a civil engineer. I don't practice right now, but you can't have, and I know people have heard this and they'll bark at me, but you can't have more post runoff than you have now, pre-development. So when they look over our drawings and when engineers produce drawings, they can't, per their calculations, have more runoff onto the neighbors than they have currently. Now, what I'll tell you is I've been down your all's neighborhoods when it rains a lot, and you do have some issues. You do. Our development, I think, will help it because of that creek that's flowing there now. We should be able to reduce the amount of runoff that's going now. Okay? So when I say a dam, I'm really thinking more like a tall berm, but it would basically function as a dam to provide retention in the valley. Now, you asked about schools. I'll attempt to answer this. Gant may want to chime in. Right now, there's no plan for additional Oldham County schools in this development. There is one planned, I think, out toward Brownsboro that's been master planned, and they've already got some, obviously, up toward Kenwood in that space. And so there might be some private schools or some elementary type stuff, parochial stuff, but in terms of Oldham County schools, there's not a plan right now for that.
All right. Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes, right here.
Thank you very much. My name is Bruce Painter. It's Paynter. I'm at 6611 Williamsburg Court. That's in the Claymont Springs subdivision. None of this really impacts our area that much, but I just have a lot of questions from our neighbors what's going on, so I'm trying to here just to ask, are the slides that you're presenting here are available on the website for them to look at, if I can point them to the?
Yeah, the plans are not presently posted on our website. When they file an application for the approval of their zoning change and the master plan, it will be posted then, but any of the things that you see here, we may have copies of, that if you contact us, we can either email them or drop them in the mail to you.
And can we get a copy of this presentation? Because I think that's what he's asking about. And once we get it, then just...
Just email? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Oh, well, let's go here.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Peter Hartman. I reside at 5311 Manor Court, Camden Manor subdivision. A little bit of backstory. I grew up literally outside of New York City. I know a thing or two about high density and the scope of this kind of project. I actually represented a project like this in Jersey City, New Jersey, called Newport Center. I do have some questions. This is my first meeting, so please bear with me. Up to this point in time, I didn't even know about this subdivision. To piggyback the previous comment about accessing information like this study, and anything else that is a public record, how do we go about getting that?
Well, Brian Fogel is the case manager. You can email him. It's bfogle, Fogle, at Oldham County, all spelled out, oldhamcountyky.gov.
I got
You
it.
can always come to the planning office, which is directly downstairs from here.
Outstanding.
And we can
Thank
provide
you.
copies, and all of it will be posted on our website.
Excellent.
As this thing moves forward.
I have one other information question. Then I specifically want to drill down on the Baptist Hospital site of 64 acres. Having lived through this type of, and by the way, I'm also a licensed real estate broker in New Jersey and Kentucky, and I have those licenses in escrow. I just merely say that because I'm familiar with this type of plan. It is going to change not just the persona and profile of Crestwood, like night and day, but also all of Oldham County. And I'm not anti-planning. I made money off of it, and anti-development, but I am a very fastidious custodian, if you will, of a resource that God's not making any more of, and that's called dirt. And we don't own that dirt. We have the right to use that dirt. This type of development, as you all know, is not going to happen in 2 weeks, 2 years, maybe even 10 years before it's all said and done, and before all the impacts of every single aspect of this development is actually witnessed by the then taxpayers of Crestwood and Oldham County. One thing I haven't heard referenced by anybody on the panel or anybody that is part of the development, height restrictions. I don't even know what the height restrictions are for the current zoning in this subject property. I can tell you the light, the noise, the infrastructure that is going to be necessary just to support the construction equipment does not exist. The roads that we have right now will not sustain 100,000, 150,000 pound equipment. The ingress, the egress to do this type of work is going to be a massive inconvenience to those that are contiguous to any aspect of this development. The police are going to be affected, EMS is going to be affected. I'm not saying anything that you don't already know. I'm merely pointing it out that as you drill down with the subject matter experts, that those T's get crossed, those I's get dotted, because they all carry a cost, and they're going to be borne by me. I'm 70 years old. I'll probably be dead by the time this thing is done. But my son, my grandson, and everyone else in here, those people are going to be impacted for it. And the best way to avoid a problem is before it ever exists. So I'd like to see some kind of emphasis on not just short-term, but midterm and long-term impacts from an environmental, personal, educational, even spiritual point of view. The schools here, when I was in the kid-raising business, the schools are what attracted us when we got back to Kentucky, and they are our diamond, one of our many diamonds. This development's going to either really push that to a whole new level, or it's going to put a huge strain on all of it. We've gone, and obviously, Oldham County is ripe for development. The times are changing, and I get it. I've anticipated this for quite a while. I just want to make sure that somewhere in the record, somebody is making a comment to pay attention to this on a very, not just a very myopic point of view, but a very panoramic point of view. And I'm not hearing that. So, back to the Baptist Hospital slide. Could we get in that top left quadrant screen, there's a slide for Baptist Hospital that is contiguous to, I believe, Camden Manor.
No, it's
No,
no, it's not.
not Camden Manor.
Keep it,
I take it back.
I know when I see it.
So
Let's
this
see here.
this is Camden Manor right here. This is Baptist Hospital over here, and this is late phase. We have single family that backs up to Camden Manor.
Okay, so bottom, where you have the thing, okay, my apologies.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you comment, and not maybe at a 30,000 foot level, because I really do want to get a copy of these slides. I'm trying to picture where, I'm trying to get oriented. Where's 146 in relation to that
This is
slide?
146 right here. This is the
Okay.
golf course right here. or
Okay,
driving
okay,
range.
okay.
This is the entry to Camden Manor coming
Okay.
back.
Very good. On the top right screen, just going over that black line, there's looks what appears to be like a yellow clear area. What is that right
Those
there?
are single family homes. There's about 7 lots that border
Perfect.
up, and then the rest of it's open space that goes down the hill.
Okay.
The park system. That theoretically there's some available connections that could happen into Camden Manor as a
Right.
possibility to access all the walking trails.
I'm again to my point about ingress and egress, especially for initially construction. Those roads going into Camden Manor are just simple 2-lane minimum code roadways that were built 25 years ago. I'm there 24 years. Camden Manor's about 26, 27 years old. So, so single family, and then the yellow again is what?
So in this area, these would be, denser housing. So you got
Right.
real housing, kind of townhomes.
Okay.
We call them mansion apartments or mansion condos, which are like 4 units.
Okay.
Maybe some larger multifamily at this location. We project this being one of the late to final phases of construction. Phasing would happen first along the bypass.
Yes, sir.
Filling in all of this area and then going back to the back. So ideally, we have a connection of accessing the development at the rear part of the property from this side, and then developing this road widths and to properly get them up to speed and part of once we get into later phases.
The where I'm headed, and I appreciate your patience with this. The next color code, not the what appears to be yellow orangish, but the next one, where I'm headed, is there any buildings right in that general area that are going to be more than 1 or 2 stories?
Could be 3.
Okay.
So kind of just, I'm going to go back up here. The purple is what's called a T5 district. This allows for your heaviest uses. Could be commercial in there. I think in a T5 zone, you can get up to 6 stories. I just don't imagine 6 stories being appropriate at this location. And I don't know how much commercial will happen here. Really, our commercial focus is down here in
Right.
these locations.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm assuming future announcements for meetings and information, what have you, is going to be on that website that you referenced earlier.
We'll
Yeah.
touch on that here in just a second.
And if you've signed into this meeting and put your email, you'll be on the email list at least. Right.
I did not sign in.
Okay.
Is that just in the back?
Yeah, when you leave out on the desk, there's a
Okay.
sign-in sheet.
Thank you very much for your patience. Appreciate it.
And
Thank you.
I want to talk about 2 things that you brought up. One is I want to talk about phasing. We mentioned earlier that this is the master plan. This is on a broader global level. And when it comes to each phase, they will be back here in front of this technical review committee to look at some of the things that you brought up specifically and get comment about that phase. That's when they drill down to more detail, including all the engineered plans and whatnot. The other thing that we do have is what's called capacity planning. We started that in the year 2000. And really, not only the schools, but our other infrastructure was being overrun by development. And so we measure every proposed development and the ability of the existing infrastructure, including schools, and specifically schools, that's where we started with, to be able to handle additional development. So that's why this TRC agency meeting is set up. So again, we look at each part of it in specifically with the agencies and utilities to make sure that we keep up with development not only here but across the county.
I appreciate that, Mr. Urban. You're absolutely right. It was part of kind of a stopgap measure where we moved here in '99, and can't remember the exact year, but early 2000,
It was
2002,
2000.
somewhere
Yep.
in there. We were going to be pushed from the South Oldham district, specifically in Camden Manor, to the Oldham County district. Primarily, what was a springboard, not the only factor, but what was the springboard were those condominiums that went in off of the bypass. That just shot up, the residential requirements. It's those stopgap measurements that are the killers, because they may occur, they may not. One thing I do know about a development of this scope is it's kind of like a living document. Nobody really knows what they need to know until their circumstances present themselves to say, hey, we now have a problem we didn't anticipate, or an opportunity that we didn't anticipate that we have to do something about, or we'd like to take advantage of. And there may very well be, I did a development where one of the conditions for the development in South Jersey was to build an elementary school. With this kind of density, this kind of scope, I don't know enough about it to comment, to say, stand here and intelligently say, this is what you're going to be facing. All I can say is, with something that's going to be of this magnitude, every single question can't be anticipated, and therefore every single answer can't be given right now. It's going to come down the road.
And that's again where we get into the phasing. And one of the agencies that unfortunately isn't here today is the Board of Education. Usually Michael Williams is here so that they're well informed of what is being proposed. We do have a maximum number of units that can be built per year to help the Board of Education understand the student population that's coming. We've been coordinating with the Board of Education since the year 2000. I would not classify that as stopgap. I'd say that was pretty creative, and that we are doing really this coordination that started back in 2000 a lot better than was ever done before in Oldham County, and we're still doing it.
I totally agree with that.
Yep.
Thank you again.
Thanks for your comments.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? All right, so we'll go here. Do you have something to add?
I was going to bring it.
Just, you've got to come to the front.
And while you're coming up, again, Michael Williams is usually here. We always get correspondence from the Board of Education. They look at the impact. But again, really specifically in each phase, the first phases we're hearing seems to be commercial. So that doesn't have an impact on schools except additional tax revenue that doesn't put students in them. So we are, again, really coordinating with Board of Education.
Well, and I hadn't heard anything about schools until this last couple, so that was what we were discussing, because they're already overcrowded. At least the South Oldham area is.
Right, and the Board of Education provides student population numbers to us in relation to this development plan, where the students are going to go, and that's from kindergarten through high school. So they do look at how a development is going to potentially impact student population.
Thank you.
If you want to.
I just want to, because it keeps coming up, we, during our design charrette, which that's that week where we design the master plan, and we invite the school board there, and all the utility companies and the traffic department to kind of help us with the plan. And so it's a very quick process, and it's a very informative process. The school was part of that, and we want a school. But it was clear during that you have 3 elementary schools in Crestwood, Camden, and Kenwood. And then you have a 4th one proposed just outside of our property to the north, a full campus over there. So at that charrette, it was pretty evident and pretty obvious that a school wasn't appropriate for our site. There was the concept of public preschools, which is, I guess, a new concept at the time when we had this discussion in January of 2019, that could be part of this, but we have never heard any follow-up from that point. So that's where, ideally we'd love to have a school, it didn't make sense considering the adjacencies of all the other schools.
All right, thank you. So seeing no one else that had any comments, on this docketed item, if you received notice of today's meeting, when they go on to the next phase of this project and apply for the Planning Commission, you all receive notice of that hearing. Don't know when that will be yet, but when you do, you will receive notice of that hearing. Those are always the fourth Tuesday of every month in this room, and those begin at 9 a.m. Jim also mentioned the sign-in sheet out there. It may not have been there when you all came in today, so if it's not, make sure you sign in on that, and you'll be notified of any further communications as well, in addition to that being placed on our website. So with that being said, since we've got such a large room of people, we've got some agencies that aren't going to have to stay for the next. We'll take about a 5-minute recess, get the room cleared out.
Is anybody here either representing Wawa or in response? Okay, there you go. Thanks. We couldn't recognize you. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll just take a brief 5-minute recess, and then make sure the room gets cleared out, and agencies, if you don't have to stay for the next. So with that being said, it's 2:32. All right, welcome back. It's 2:40, and we'll call the meeting back into session. So we'll deal with now 23-011. That's a proposed Wawa in Buckner. With that being said, we'll have the applicant go ahead and give us a brief presentation.
All right. Yes, thank you. Give me 1 second to pull up the site plan and then get going.
Matt, would you go close that door?
Go.
Let me see.
Do you guys have physical copies? If not, I have a
Of the
couple.
plans?
Yeah, of the plan.
Yeah, there's actually one right over there on the corner.
Okay. I think that might be easier.
Okay.
Is that okay with you guys?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
If you want, you can put it up on the overhead.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, we've got all the technology.
Thank you.
Just lay it down there as you would read it.
All right. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so here to talk about the Wawa at Highway 393 and Commerce Parkway in Buckner, Kentucky. It's located at the southwest corner of that intersection. So this is Highway 393 over here and Commerce Parkway up there. And as you can see, the Wawa is located right at the middle of the site. The building is just under 6,000 square feet. And then we have a gas canopy with 10 pumps right here, and those are the gas tanks. So that'll actually hold the gas for the canopy. And those 10 pumps will serve 20 cars, one on each side of the pump. As far as access goes, let me set this up a little bit. We have this access point off of Highway 393, which we've had some discussions with KYTC, and that's actually going to be a right-in only. So there won't be that right-out movement that we're showing in this plan, and we'll revise our plan to show that. And then the other access point is off of Commerce Parkway, and that goes right here into a long drive behind the site, and there will be more developments to the south of our site down here. So that drive will also serve those sites. And that right in off of Highway 393 will also serve the other businesses that are to the south of us eventually. Not sure exactly what those will be. As far as utilities go, there's an existing sanitary sewer line that runs at the back of the site, so we'll be tapping into that. And then water and gas will both require extensions through that rear access drive, and those extensions will also serve the larger development. And then on the stormwater side, all our stormwater is draining to this existing drainage swale in the back of the site, which then flows to the south to a master detention area that is being planned by the master developer. So we will include those details as we get them. They're still figuring out all the specifics there. That is a pretty general overview of the site, and then more about Wawa specifically. So Wawa, it's obviously a gas station, but it's not really like your typical gas convenience store. They really focus on fresh food and being a part of the community. They like to donate to local community programs, employ local people, and really make a store that's not just a quick stop in for a tank of gas, but somewhere where you can get a nice bite to eat, something that tastes really good, and be a good meeting point of the community. That's everything I have. If you guys have any questions.
All right. If you just give us your name and address for the record, who you're with.
Yes, Nick Lanning, 1218 Montgomery Ave in Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm with Kimley Horn, who's the engineer on the project and representing the developer and owner.
All right, thank you. So we'll go to agency comments now. I'll begin. I did give you the letter that has all these highlighted on here, but we'll just read those into the record here. So plan shall include the name and address of the current property owner. We need a sketch map on that showing the relative location of the site. We talked about, and Jim Silman will have it in his notes about KYTC needing an encroachment permit through them. Include parcel IDs on your adjoining property owners. Include any acreage in the street right-of-way. Include right-of-way width of any abutting streets, proposed streets, driveways, and parking areas. Include the size and locations of all utilities. There were some fire hydrants noted on there, gas lines, things like that. So those have to have the size as well. Include locations and purpose of all easements on the plan. Didn't know if there was one there on the 393 side or not, but I don't believe there was anything labeled. Note if there's any areas of steep slope greater than 30%. Provide a notation regarding the location of the proposed site in relation to the 100-year floodplain, and if there's not, just a general note that it's not within that floodplain. Note the flow of stormwater on the plans. And then a separate detailed landscape and lighting plan will be required at time of construction plan review. And that plan must also include screening requirements for that dumpster area. So just keep that in mind. And then ensure that the signage is consistent with our sign regulations. Brian Fogel handles all of our sign permits and things like that, but we're not sure if a variance may be required for that 30-foot pylon sign. So just get with us on that and make sure that doesn't need to be asked for when you go further. I'll also just let you know, I know you all received an email from KYTC regarding their comments. I will just read these for transparency's sake, but every reference to I-71 that was east and west needs to be north and south. They talked about the exit ramp and the signal timing. Permit needs to add a second left turn lane from westbound Commerce Parkway to southbound Kentucky 393. Has already been issued and should be constructed prior to the opening of the development. Pedestrian signals are also being added. Redo the analysis of that intersection accordingly. And then remove the right out, which you've already addressed in your comments to 393, and redistribute those trips accordingly. And then I know MSD had to leave. They, I believe, also sent you comments that just they would need that downstream facilities capacity request form. They did email back today and said that's the only comments that they did have on that. So with that being said, do you want to add anything for Wawa? Okay, Jim Silliman.
Jim Silliman, County Engineer. From the stormwater standpoint, of course, since this is a greater than 1 acre disturbance of land, you'll need to get the KYR 10 permit from the Division of Water and also the Stormwater and Management and Erosion Control permit from our office. Go ahead. We need you to label the blue line streams on the plan view. Now, you mentioned stormwater being directed towards that stream, which is a mapped blue line stream. We've got approved plans for the basin you mentioned, the stormwater detention basin that's to the south to serve several properties. Based on those plans, that stream actually bypasses the basin. So you either need to send your water to the basin or provide your own detention.
Yep. Sounds good. I think they're still figuring out exactly what they're doing with that basin. They were having some conversations about changing it up a little bit, but we'll make sure to coordinate that with them when they have it nailed down for sure.
Okay, so then also that might affect the pipes that you have shown discharging to the stream based on what your impact and proximity to that stream is, whether you need to get Army Corps permitting and what buffers might be required for that stream. With regard to the traffic, I think Ryan, I hadn't seen those comments from KYTC, but it addressed a lot of my comments in that, the ingress and egress, how KYTC was going to evaluate that, the ingress and egress off Kentucky Highway 393, and seeing that is going to change to a right-in only, how it affects the traffic on Commerce Parkway, and so they're instructing to have the TIS updated. Correct. In some previous meetings, we had noted the offset intersection on Commerce Parkway. There's an existing stub road on Commerce on the opposite side, and those don't line up. Can you address that?
Yes, so we are proposing our entrance, obviously not aligned with this stub road right there. I believe our traffic impact study justified that, but we can look into it more if that's something you would like to see changed or us to do more analysis on.
Yeah, just typical safety reasons, having those lined up is what we want to see.
Especially because we don't know what's going to be across the street there. So if it's a high volume, high turning movement, there's only two directions to go, left or right. And if you can't line up and see cars, I'm going to say, I don't care what the traffic analysis says. When we get into safety issues, they're always lined up across from each other.
And it doesn't
Okay.
mean that you have to move yours, but maybe the provision is that you relocate the one across the street further to the
Right.
west. The only other item would be with that, the ingress, egress, or right only in on 393, will an access easement be required for the portion that's off the Wawa property?
Yes. I believe so.
That's all.
Thank you. Matt?
The only question I had, in the beginning, I thought that there was two parcels that you guys were trying to consolidate, or was that?
So I believe there are two parcels here, but I think that'll be handled with a larger plat for the entire master development, which obviously we will need to get before all final approvals and everything like that.
Because like currently there is an address that was assigned, not for this, but just something that was in the past. It was on 393. It's 27 something or another. I mean, I'm fine with either one of them. They're both going to be Buckner, regardless of whether it's a 393 or a Commerce Parkway address. But where are the signage for this? Do you know?
The signage for the
Just so that we know where to like put the numbers on the building to alert just, first responders if there was an accident, like where.
Right. I'm not 100% sure. I think we'd probably have to ask Wawa to get those specifics, but we can certainly look into that and get that to you after this meeting.
But like we'll just have to deal with the address number, but either way it's going to be Buckner, whether it's Commerce Parkway or just don't, when you look on the GIS map online, that 27 whatever, that was just issued for something in the past, so it might change. So just don't. We'll have to just nail that down
Sounds
at
good.
the end.
Thank you for the heads up.
Sir?
Yes, sir. Keith Smith, of LaGrange Fire Department. Speaking of the streets and all, is that street where your entrances are, does that become a public street? Or, I'm trying to think, what's the address of it going to be, and if where their entrances come in? Because I know we've got further development south of your property. Is it a Commerce Parkway address, or is that path going to be named or something?
I'm not 100% sure on that. I can look into that, but I don't think it will be a public road. I think it will be private just for the development.
I would assume.
Right, it's not shown as being a public right-of-way, but it might be a named private road.
Okay, all right.
I mean, I would assume that with a right only in, Keith, that we would just all have 393.
Oh, okay, 393 address.
Yeah.
All right, all right.
Because Tri-County Ford is the only address that we have on that section of Commerce Parkway.
That's that 2700 you're talking about.
Yeah, whatever that other number is. But I mean, that, even though it would be like a sort of a service road, I think it would be confusing to have things be Commerce Parkway. I would assume that they would all face 393. Or at least they would prefer to have a 393 address. Similar to Kroger, how you can't really get in there that way, but they have 393 address.
Okay, all right. Then my only other comment is going to be, we know that you're going to be bringing water service down this roadway, and we'll be placing a fire hydrant somewhere right in that area to service that building. And then also coming down the road, just make note that we'll require a Knox box on the property for the builder. That's really all I've got.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Is Wawa normally, is it 24 hours or?
Yes.
It is, okay. All right.
All right, Russ Rose with Oldham County Water. This is in the service area of Oldham County Water, and we would intend to serve this. So question, will the building require fire protection sprinklers?
Typically, they do not use sprinklers, no.
Okay. So we haven't reviewed any construction plans. We would want to do that. And also, I think maybe Jim mentioned it, we would need to show the water line easement on the plat for where we intend to run, but we'd like to have a discussion with you about where that would be.
Absolutely.
All right, sorry about that.
No.
Okay, I think that concludes all the agency comments. Is there anybody in the crowd that would like to ask a question that would be technical in nature, the applicant or any agencies? Up here? No? Oh, we got it.
Perry Thomas, Oldham County Conservation District, 1002 Buckner Center Drive. And I'm happy to see Wawa coming to Oldham County. I'm a fan of Wawa, as is my family, so I'm looking forward to being a customer, and I pass that every day on my commute to work. I do hear some opportunities from the perspective of the Curry's Fork watershed with the question of what to do with the stormwater at this point, not quite sure about the detention pond. There would be opportunities for constructed wetlands or creative approaches to managing that stormwater that could be demonstrations for other communities in the county. There's also the possibility for conserving wildlife habitat along any blue line stream that goes through this area. And as Jim Silliman suggested, that needs to be mapped and the possibility explored. Those are our comments.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else? All right, so with that being said, just like the last case, I don't know how many adjoining property owners are in here, but you'll be notified for any other hearings that they may have. If not, it'll also be on our website, posted in the Oldham era, things of that nature. So with that being said, that concludes today's hearing at 2:57. We'll conclude it. Thank you.